Silence.
And welcome to another episode of Funny Talk with Mongelli and Max with our special guest tonight, Kevin Bartini.
Hey, everybody. Hey, Tom.
How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being had. And of course, once again, I'm Tom Mongelli, and this is my co-host, Doug Max. Say hi, Doug.
It wasn't once again. You just said Mongelli and Max. You didn't. You introduced Kevin Bartini and then Mongelli and Max. No, Doug Max.
I'm assuming our the people who view our show are serial viewers and they've seen us before.
You're assuming that. See, I'm assuming that when somebody sees our show,
yeah,
they've seen it. It's like, going on a roller coaster. Why do you need to do that again?
One episode.
You've been frightened.
One episode usually enough, but not for tonight because we have a great.
Okay, we do have a great guest, and Kevin Bartini has risen to a level that many people in comedy are jealous of. I'm going to let him brag a little bit about the things that he's been able to do in comedy, but the reason he's on our show is not because of what he's done. The reason is because he made a very desperate plea on Facebook. He's been out of the comedy game. He wants to practice. He needs exercise. Little did he suspect what's going to go on here, but we're going to listen to him. We're going to let him get practice, and he will feel like he's a real comedian compared to what we're going to deliver. So, Kevin Bartini, who are you? What have you done?
Well, first of all, I got to tell you guys, it's very important at the top of the show to make sure both hosts are introduced and stuff. When you bring on a guest who's not done your show before, especially a guest of my caliber, they're going to attract a whole new audience for you. I mean, I don't want to brag, but guys, I'm going to bring you sevens of new listeners for this. I mean, easily.
So we're going to triple our audience because one of them is a little person. So that's good.
In the most minimal way. So in respect for those handful of people, it's good that you set yourselves up. What have I done? I'm a comedian and a writer, and I've done kind of a variety of different things over my 20-year career that have allowed me to somehow survive some theater, some TV work, this and that. I don't know. It's weird because of this whole 15 months or so, 14, 15 months have gone by. It feels like 2 years, it feels like a decade.
Absolutely.
A lot of the shit I used to do isn't really relevant anymore. So I don't know, I'm a comedian. I'm just out of practice. I spent this whole year pretty much, I don't know if you were like me, but did you, I started the pandemic feeling like I was going to use this as found time.
Yeah, right.
Like I think we all have that one prison fantasy, the non-sexual prison fantasy, lock me away for 6 months.
Wait a minute. Go back. The non-sexual. Okay, never mind.
Yeah. The one non-sexual prison fantasy, lock me in a cell for a year, give me my books, and just, let me get caught up. Let me take a break from life and get caught up and, finally read Shakespeare and do some sit-ups, that kind of thing. And, so I embraced this pandemic like that for like the first month or so, and I thrived, and I can see
how your torso is. You must have been holding the unabridged Shakespeare while you were doing the sit-ups.
Yeah, right.
That'll pump you up. Tom's been doing that, but be careful.
I've been doing shakes, mostly vanilla.
So that lasted about 1 month. That lasted about 1 month of bettering myself. I didn't realize that. It's been about 1 month of bettering myself, and then a solid year where I was basically Brian Wilson, and then
it's called. Listen, it's called an interregnum. It's
okay.
It's a
Interregnum?
interregnum. Don't be dirty, Tom. Interregnum. I learned that from Isaac Asimov in the Foundation series.
Okay.
Yeah.
What does interregnum actually mean?
I really don't know, Kevin, but that's what we're going to refer to it as. It's a
So anyway,
period.
so
It's a
I don't know,
break. It's a transitional period. It's a
Okay.
transitional period.
Well,
So
that's
you come out of it. It's
Yeah,
not like, it's not like, and we all knew there was going to be an end. I was worried it was going to be the end of all American life. But
it was strange, and it's weird to now come back to it. And I'm coming back to stand up a little later than a lot of other people, just because of the vaccinations and stuff like that, So yeah, I don't know. I didn't do a lot of. I think I probably maybe did 3 or 4 things online this past year for other people, stand up wise, and
well, we're glad you're desperate to get back to comedy.
Yeah. It's so weird, like having to like put up that post you referenced on Facebook and stuff like that. It's like it feels like a whole new world out there.
Well, I empathize, and you need to. There's no good. The only person that having comedy inside of you is good for is me. If you've heard my comedy, you'd know. It's good for me. But anyway, Kevin, two things. One, sure. If I'm not mistaken, you got to do warm up for The Daily Show. Is this true?
The Daily Show with Jon Stewart.
Thank you, which is awesome. How does he smell?
Oh my God, like vanilla, wildflowers, and elderberry.
Exactly. I knew it. Except for the elderberry, but I knew it. Thank you. That's the one thing I didn't. And something, I saw a clip of him recently with the 9/11 defense responders, and Jesus. You were talking about Shakespeare. Stewart's always been one of my favorite. Second to you. Favorite.
Sure.
But I've always admired the fools, the ones who could speak truth to power. And Stewart was able to do that, and could get away with it it could tell the truth. It was one of the odd places that the only place you could find the real truth, and you trusted it, was through satire.
I agree.
It's sad that the only way you could get the truth is through,
100%. I absolutely agree. He carried the torch that George Carlin carried before him, and Mort Saul before George Carlin, and going back to Mark Twain, and and then names I don't know that are older than Mark Twain. But yeah, the
Aeschylus. I think you're thinking of Aeschylus. He was a. Oh, anyway.
Yeah, but I think there was somebody between Aeschylus and I can't remember.
It was Buster Keaton, but he never talked.
Yeah, the guy between Aeschylus and Twain. Remember, he lived like 1,000 years, but he really held the fort down. So yeah, political comedy is great when done right, and is important and holds place. So I respect it. I want to put a disclaimer as we talk about The Daily Show and Jon Stewart and all that in glowing, fawning terms that I 100% agree with. Disclaimer right off the bat: I worked for The Daily Show for 2 seasons as a warm-up comic. I was never on the camera.
Thank you.
But I wasn't. I was never a writer. I was the warm-up comic. And I feel like telling people that right off the bat. So when we're talking about what a genius show and brilliant, I'm not over here patting myself on the back, because I literally.
I'm patting you on the back, because I would kill for that. I would kill you for that job. Are you planning on going back to it, by the way?
Oh, 1,000,000%. But on that staff, and for importance, I outranked the guy, the janitor, and that's it. Nobody was below me, So I can talk about it freely, because I got in. I think I got hired there. What was it? It was 10 years ago, because I just saw the Facebook memory in April. So the show was already at its zenith, at its apex when I came on. So they've accomplished everything, blah, blah, blah. So as I say it, I just want people to know I'm not patting myself on the back. I got very lucky.
Kevin, yeah, I was going to say, you have to be funny. You have to be
like,
in the right
I'm
place
not
at the
saying I
right
didn't
time.
earn
Yeah.
it. I'm not saying I didn't work hard for it. I'm not saying
Yeah.
the way I got the job, I think, was genius. Everything that went into it and everything I did there, I'm very proud of. But I am. If you read the Daily Show's oral history, my name does not come up. I'm a very small player, so I always felt my success on that show came from really this feeling of being a fan of the show, which I was from Kilborn days. I never missed an episode, and until a couple of years ago. I was like a fan pulled off out of the crowd and just given this one job and get to shake hands with Jon and be in that world, but as a fan. So
That's
all
great.
that, yeah, it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. Seems like a really cool guy. I was not close to him. I didn't have a lot of access. The way a show like that works when you're the warm-up comic is, I wouldn't even show up to the set till like 5 o'clock at night, right? For like a 6 o'clock taping. I would hang out in the green room or wherever for about an hour. At some point, it's called starting the machine. And the machine for a show like that starts when they have finalized the last of the script. They did their run through, they've done their edits. Everything is finished and it's sent to the teleprompter to be entered. So that's called, and that's starting the machine, right? And that's kind of a 30-minute countdown. So when they start the machine, Jon would leave the rewrite room or wherever he was. He'd go put on the suit. He'd get into hair and makeup. He'd go greet the guest backstage and do all the stuff he had to do in those 30 minutes. In that time, they bring me out and I'm on stage and I do my thing. Then I bring him out and then he does the show. And then after the show, I don't even have to stay. If I didn't want to stay or I couldn't stay, I would leave. But then the show's over. Maybe I'd see him after for a moment or two, but we never hung out. We were,
I'm going to try to fix that, Kevin, because I think that's wrong.
Yeah, no, it isn't.
I am a member of Bartini, I'm assuming, is Italian.
Yes.
And as is Mongelli, the I giveaway,
Yes.
Anyway, I am a member of the tribe. Not a good member, but I'm a member. So I'm going to write him a letter in Hebrew. Hope he can understand it.
No, I had a wonderful, wonderful time on that show, and it was.
I bet you did. What was it like warming up? Did you do political humor warming up, or you left that to the show?
No, just the opposite. You know what? I've said this in interviews before, but if you were doing stand up warming up for Kenny Rogers, you're not gonna work the gambler into your act, right? You don't want to be touching anything that the show may be touching later. So I didn't touch current politics, current events, the news. You reference who's going to be the guest on the show. It was the majority of what I do as a warm-up comic is just crowd work. It's just being able to keep those plates spinning. And
I thought you were going to say you can't touch anything but yourself. And so for 30 minutes.
Yeah, 30 minutes of playing with myself up there. Sometimes it felt like that. Sometimes it felt like
Tom, you remember when that wasn't such a bad set of mine. Remember, that was only 7 minutes, but.
But before we go more deeply down this,
thank you, Tom.
I do want to bring up our sponsor, who makes the show possible for us. That's Jack Hoffman of J. Irwin Productions. If you want to put together a comedy show for either a fundraiser or a private party or a showcase in a restaurant, contact Jack at jirwinproductions.com. He's the guy to call, to contact. He knows all the comics in the area, North Jersey, New York.
And don't worry, he won't put me on a show. He'll put Tom on, but
yeah, you can request.
You don't have to worry. You can request specifically no Doug Max. You just order number 3 on the comedy menu.
That comes with fried rice. But anyway, Jack, he's a great to work with, and he puts on great shows. even the one that that Doug was on. But the way you contact them is you email jack@jirwinproductions.com.
That's what you do. And if we find out you had a comedy show and you didn't write to jack@jirwinproductions.com, we're going to find out where you live, send you like flowers every week and make you feel horribly guilty. And you'll never do that again. Yeah. Okay. And
So-
that's how we thank our sponsor here, Kevin.
Awesome, man.
It's better than what we
congratulations
used to
on
do.
having a Sponsor. That's amazing. Just having a sponsor is a great thing. I think I know Jack. I don't know that I work for him, but I think we're Facebook friends. I recognize the name.
You know, Jack knows everybody. So
Jack do stand up too? Would he have been? He doesn't
No.
do stand up too. Okay.
no,
Name
and
him.
lying down or standing up, you can't tell the difference with him. He's roly-poly,
Oh, okay.
like Tom.
No, he's a huge. He's always been a huge comedy fan.
Yeah.
And he started producing shows. And actually, before he started producing, he was one of my bringers.
Ah, okay. Good for him. Good. The more people producing out there, the better. I mean, a lot of now that
Plus
I'm
or minus, I gotta
no,
say.
it's a plus. It's a plus, man. I tell you what, I like I said, I've been doing stand up now 20 years. The number of people in my Rolodex that used to book shows or clubs or stuff that are dead, or it's crazy. You know, I guess it's the age I came in. Like all the people from the comedy boom of the 80s now had done it and now are dying off. So like seriously, the number of clubs, if I look back at my old calendar from like 10 years ago, the venues, the clubs that are gone, the bookers that are dead, the venues, all this kind of stuff. So I bet you I could name about a half dozen people from a decade ago that would have been Jack Hoffman's, right? That would have been one-nighters, that would have been the great thing about stand-up, or for stand-up in New York, is being able to do one-nighters or gigs and make a little money and then go home and sleep in your own bed, you know? Those guys are gone. So the more of them that start coming in and finding restaurants that'll have a place, or getting in touch with firehouses and that kind of thing, and creating work, God bless them. The more the better. And I know some are scumbags and some are going to get $5,000 for the night and pay all the acts a grand total and that kind of thing, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
The ones who want to go do the footwork and get us the work, good for them.
I agree. I agree. And my comment was only kind of referencing that it seems like in New Jersey, every restaurant is doing a comedy show, and you know, and so there are maybe 50 people running shows,
Sure.
and there are a lot of little niches that go on, and so you have the, I don't want to say more because I'm happy to be on anybody's show.
That's the same at every level in show business. Whatever level you're going to get to, there's niches of people. They're going to have their friends and their circles, and that's the name of the goddamn game, man.
Yeah,
Sucks.
I don't have a circle. I have a point.
Okay.
Now,
Not
me,
even a line. Yeah, you're a circle, Tom. You're a circle, Tom.
but yeah, most of those that I prefer, I'm not crazy about performing in nightclubs per se. It's the shows like the Rotary clubs and the American Legion halls and all of that. I think it's a win-win, because one, you don't have to worry about bringers. They supply their own people, and they pay better.
Yeah, they're great, and they're great practice, and some of those places. I mean, I've done tons of VFWs and firehouse. You know, we just call them firehouse gigs. You know, that kind of thing. And yeah, those people are coming out. It's a different audience that you get in a nightclub, because they all know each other, right?
They're more homogeneous as a group.
They're drunk together. They're comfortable
That's
together.
because they sleep together.
That's right. And when you do crowd work, and when you start shitting on one of them, they go crazy, and you get that feeling sometimes. Not only if you do well do they laugh, but you just stuck that person with something that they're going to have hanging around their neck for the rest of their lives.
I did that, but I did it by mistake at the end of the show rather than at the beginning. Remember my famous chapstick line, Tom? I don't know why I didn't do that at the beginning. I picked on this. There was this guy I forget where it was. But but he was like 6'8", and I thought, I'm 5'6" when I'm humid, when it's humid, and I'm thinking, before the show there are 150 people, whatever there, and I'm like, who do I not want to piss off? And my eyes went right to this guy. He's standing in line waiting for his plate, to get his food. And I'm thinking, I do not want to piss this guy off. And then he went in his pocket, pulled out chapstick, and did that. So
he started putting it on like a woman with lipstick.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's very hard to find a masculine way to put chapstick on, know. What I like to do is smear it on a tough guy's knuckles and then insult him and let him punch me in the mouth. That's the only manly way you can wear chapstick.
Wait, so that was you?
What's that?
That was you?
Yeah, that was me. That was me.
I had a bit. I forget. I was driving and I thought, if I get pulled over by a cop, what can I do to show him that I'm, I once went scuba diving with my diving buddy for a week was a cop, and he told me stories. So I was very empathetic to what they have to go through. So my plan was, if I ever get pulled over by a cop for speeding or something like this, that at some point while I'm handing him my documents, I will put on chapstick, and he'll feel sorry for me, like, oh my God, poor.
Sure.
He doesn't know. You don't put on chapstick in front of another guy.
Doug, you don't need to put chapstick on for somebody to feel sorry for you.
I just like.
I do it. It's delivery, Tom. It's delivery.
What I like in your story and your idea there is just the embedded white privilege that you think cop pulls you over, you can reach into your pocket and not get shot. Just pulling out chapstick. It's just chapstick. Too late.
Actually,
it's tough to develop. It's tough to say it's just chapstick.
It's funny, but it's funny but true.
Throat,
it's funny but true. A comic I know, a black comic. I forget, this was years ago, and we weren't even heavy into the black kids getting shot for no reason, period, yet. And he was like,
no, we've always been heavy into that period. It's just we've not been heavy into paying attention to it.
Maybe. Well, that's true. That's a good point. Anyway, his joke was, I'm keeping my hands at 10 and 2. I'm not going 10 and 2.
Yeah. Do you remember Patrice O'Neill had a bit about his paranoia being the size that he wasn't, being a black man, that he was always going out of his way to make sure he was in places with security cameras, or if he bought a soda, he was paranoid that he would buy a soda and litter it or something, and it would end up at the scene of a rape, and they would have hit, in his all the shit. So he was always getting a receipt with timestamps on everything. And
but as funny as it is, it's also kind of true. One of my oldest friends is black, living in Chicago. One of
my blackest friends is old. Isn't that weird?
It is. He will only shop in the same stores. He says, if I go in a new store, they follow me around. They can I help you? But they're following me around. I know what's going on. And so he shops in stores where they're familiar with him. He pays. He's a regular person. Mm-hmm. And it's like he's in a prison.
Yeah.
He feels like he's in a prison. He walks on the road and he worries about getting shot. I do not worry about that. And I didn't think twice about reaching for my chapstick,
Right.
So what kind of comedy are you preparing for the post-pandemic comedy world, Kevin?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know.
Well, this is your opportunity. You said you wanted to practice comedy. We've got another half an hour, and go.
It's not about practice as much as just kind of blowing dust off a little, which I guess is practice. But I don't have any new bits written and material. I'm gonna go into stand up for the next couple of months in the way I went into audience warm up of crowd work, just play around and see what comes out. Because I really can't over stress how far away I removed myself over the last year from everything. From like I was saying earlier, like I only did like those Zoom comedy shows like a couple of times because they just I didn't like the feeling of standing in my room doing stand up. It felt
Yeah.
so masturbatory, and there's no
Well,
getting.
you're supposed to be doing that at the same time. I thought we covered that already. If you're not having fun, why would an audience have fun?
Right. But at the same time, once I got mentally out of being a stand-up for a year or so, I wasn't thinking in the world of, oh, that could be a bit, or, oh, that's something I said, I should write it down. So for me, I'm not coming back with, with a new hour of material. I'm gonna kind of go the other way of let's just crowd
Nothing.
work,
That's my
play.
way.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah. I'm just gonna do crowd work. So like I said, like I'll come up with a new 20 minutes just having done crowd work. Something will come up, ideas, bits, and things.
So I'm just going to remind you, because I'm clearly older than you. I
Yeah.
know I'm older than Tom.
Mm-hmm.
It's like riding a bicycle. I know people say, a lot of people in comedy say you got to exercise your muscles and keep, and I agree with that, but you've been doing it for 20 years. You've got muscle memory,
Mm-hmm.
you're mostly making sense tonight. So we think your brain has survived the pandemic.
Yeah.
So,
It's,
you just gotta, and the other thing, I used to teach presentation skills for corporate America.
mm-hmm.
My favorite tip, to give all those speakers that were nervous about public speaking,
Yeah.
they'd always worry, oh, I'm going to get out of order. I'm like, the audience doesn't know what you have to say.
It's true.
They
It's
see
true.
you. They have no idea. You could be staring at them for 10 minutes and
Mm-hmm.
saying nothing. And
It's true.
you'll get a laugh. I know.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not worried about it at all. Yeah, no, I agree. It's like getting back on a bike. I've taken breaks before. I did until I got married and went on my honeymoon in 2009. I had spent a decade in the clubs here in New York and I can't tell you before my honeymoon that I ever had a stretch of more than 2 nights in a row where I didn't perform. And usually
Wow.
it was less than that. I mean, it was multiple spots a night going around and doing that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Without taking time off. And then I got married, so my honeymoon there was probably 2 weeks. That was my first significant break, 2 weeks or so. And
Were you did you do any comedy on your
my
honeymoon inadvertently and get in trouble for it? Wow,
Yeah.
you're a smart guy. You're smarter than me, because I get grief about it all the time.
Well, I tell you, one time it happened. My wife and I took a cruise. It wasn't our honeymoon; it was just a vacation, and it was on the cruise. They had a comedy night for the guests, which are worse than open mic. It's worse than Now that I've spent a year performing, or not a year, but 9 months, whatever it was, performing on cruise ships, and having seen one or two of these, how terrible it was. But I hadn't done anything in about probably a week, any stand up, and I wanted to do the thing. I wanted to go and do a spot on it, and my wife got legitimately pissed. She was like, "No, you're gonna go in and you're gonna pretend you're not a professional, and you're gonna crush, and you're only gonna do that because then you're gonna walk around the ship like a celebrity the rest of the time and get it." And so I ended up not doing it. So there's no comedy for me on vacations. That is a big bone of contention for us. If she comes on the road with me, if it's only to cool towns, right? So if I take her to Vegas or Miami or somewhere like that, that's still not a vacation because I was technically working. So that doesn't count, So she's not into that.
Do book a few shows at cow and pig slaughterhouses and insist your wife comes with you. And from that day on, when you go to Vegas,
No,
slaughterhouse, honey.
Oh, dude, believe me, my wife and I, she was with me. I mean, I met my wife in 2001, and I was a baby comic. I was definitely still
8 years until you got married.
Yes.
I'm doing the math. I've been with my girlfriend 6 years, so we'll get back. We'll come back to that.
I've been with his girlfriend 7 years.
Yeah, we waited a long time. We had no problem with that. But I was just past open mic status at that point, when she and I met, and we were babies. I mean, I was 22. So she would come on the road those first couple of years. We would do road gigs. She'd come to some, and it was Bananas in Poughkeepsie, which is gone now. I took her up there for an overnight for 2 days. And when I was 22, 23, I didn't have a car, and I wasn't old enough to rent a car. So my first 5 years of road gigs was all about trains and buses and shit.
Wow.
So we get to Poughkeepsie, which is only an hour away from Manhattan. We do our shows, and I'm done at like 10 p.m. and there's nowhere in town to get a bite to eat. There's no food. We had our dinner at the 7-Eleven next door. We had ho-hos and ring-dings and shit for dinner. Then the next day, we're supposed to kill time. We were just going to go to the mall down the road. We called for a taxi to pick us up, and the guy didn't show for like 2 fucking hours. We called another taxi who scoffed at us for calling that other bunch of jerks, and then didn't show up. So we sat for 3.5 hours in the lobby of a hotel until the desk clerk got off her shift and felt bad for us and gave us a lift.
Oh, wow.
So that was when my wife made the decision, and that was probably about 2003, that she was going to be so much more selective with the towns she comes to and visits. And she now has a level of style and comfort that she expects when she travels with Team Bartini because of that one gig. So
Well,
she's, plus she has her
that
own
might
life, her
some
own
of
career.
that some of that is ingrained in the
Mhm.
female in any case.
Yeah.
But a story like that is, is a good excuse for
Mhm.
to cover for the rest of the life. Yeah.
It's a great name if you're a magician.
What
What's
is?
that?
If you were a magician, Bartini would be a great name. The Great Bartini.
Sure, the Great Bartini. Absolutely. Yeah.
I get when I kept on thinking, don't say martini, because one of my favorite drinks that I learned from my Italian, my ex was Italian, was the Martini and Rossi Bianco vermouth. They have it in Italy over ice with a slice of lime. I met a Martini, a relative of the Martini family, who would come to the U.S. for love. I don't think it worked out, but
No.
he told me, I never knew this, that the martini, the drink, was invented so that the Martini and Rossi would have a market
For their vermouth.
for vermouth. And so
Yeah.
they invented the cocktail. The first cocktail was the martini.
Vermouth
Yeah.
is big in Italy.
My last name is Bartini, which I always just tell people like the cocktail with a B. And I'm sure there'll be more, but there was a comedy club at one point that's no longer with us that had the Kevin Bartini martini on their, they made me a drink and put it on. So I thought that was a nice thing.
Nice.
But my last name was Americanized, just like in The Godfather, at Ellis Island. So we went back to Italy a couple of years ago, and my family name in Italy is Bartoli, but it got Americanized to Bartini.
Isn't that the olive oil company?
What's that?
Isn't that the olive oil company? Bartoli?
Bertoli. So yeah, Bertoli olive oil, and then one of the 4 families. My family all goes back to Lake Como, and so there was 4.
Nice.
My 4 great grandparents, let's say, their families all came from there. So we have Bartoli, which is like the olive oil, and then we also have Ranzoni, which is like the pasta company, Ranzoni, and the others, I don't think there's anything to it, but yeah, it was kind of cool going back to Lake Como and seeing that area. It's absolutely gorgeous.
I've been there. It is beautiful.
When I hear your name, the first thing I think of is the character in The Godfather, Barzini.
Of course, yes. And and I live on the Upper West Side, and there's a little market on 91st and Broadway called Barzini's as well, and that's pretty close.
Did they give you a discount because of your last name?
No,
Have
I
you
wish.
asked?
No, I haven't. I haven't. Oh, there's also a string of gay bars called Bartini.
Those are the ones Doug's familiar with.
Hey,
I had no idea, and I've never. And there's actually, I guess there's one here in Manhattan, and I know at one point they had a comedy night, but I've never been.
you think
But
there's a gay bar in New York City? I don't know.
called Bartini's, called Bartini.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Called
Yeah.
Bartini. Okay.
yeah. Um, and they're I don't know if they're a chain, but they're all over the place. And I googled, when you Google Kevin Bartini, on like the first 2 or 3 pages are all me, but once you get past that, you start to see the things where some dude named Kevin performing at the gay bar Bartini's and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I want it one day. I'm going to go to one. I'm going to find one.
It's
And
gotten to the.
I want to see if they have like the cocktail napkins with their logo on it. Like, I think that'd be cool as shit,
You're gonna steal some Bartinis. Watch out.
Uh-huh.
Now, I'm not familiar with your act. I don't think we've ever worked together, right?
I don't know. I know your name. We may have, we may not have. I don't know. It's so hard to say after 20 fucking years, and you're on Facebook, and everybody's in different. I recognize names again and again, and I can't remember if I've worked certain people here and there. So we can say we haven't, but chances are at some point.
If you've seen Tom's act in the last year, your head would still be like bobbling.
Oh, well, I should tell you that I wouldn't know you from your act. I don't watch other comics, so
I was going to ask you. We're going to be performing when the June 24th, I think, and I don't want to do jokes that you're going to do. So do you? I have some Italian jokes that I'll probably go into.
No problem there.
About growing up Italian.
No, I have nothing like that.
All right.
Yeah. No, do whatever you want. See, I have the opposite rule. The rule I place on myself when I'm warming up for a TV show is how I, got on my way to avoid anything that the other, that the show would talk about. But when I'm doing comedy and people are opening for me, I don't care what they talk about, what they do, if it comes close to anything in my act, because I'll just not do that in my act. I have to. And if I actually take it as a personal challenge. If somebody starts because if I'm doing an hour and I'm planning to do a lot of crowd work, you still have that little skeleton of, well, I got this bit and that bit, and this will take me to that. And if all of a sudden you're up there and you're doing something similar, now it's like, oh, okay, we got to shift and we got to make a change.
Right.
I remember.
It's like that scene in The West Wing right before Bartlett's going to go out for his debate, and so what's her name? His wife cuts his tie at the last second. It gives you that little energy of like, whoa, shit, I got to change things up. So when somebody does,
Channing.
No, Stockard Channing. Stockard Channing, yes. So it's that same thing. I like that energy. If somebody does something close, I just have to change it
I
up.
remember early on, I was maybe in comedy a year and a half, and I had 6 minutes, maybe, whatever. Yeah. And I was at a show. I wasn't on it, but I remember between the comics, one had done something with a dog. I won't tell you my dog story. One had done something with their dad, they were doing material that was like, it was like a perfect storm against me. And I would have been able to go up and do it because my material is different than theirs. But, at the time I'm thinking, oh, they did a dog. I can't do a dog. They did, avocado. I can't have an avocado. People think I'm stealing, I didn't. Right. Yeah. Now I don't care.
Yeah.
I realized nobody steals. The only time they stealed my comedy was early on at Gotham. And,
oh, yeah.
And they weren't jokes. They were only premises, because I didn't know a comedian was supposed to make people laugh. I thought I was just supposed to tell them funny stuff and they would laugh on their own, No,
it's a little different than that.
I gave them the premise. That was funny.
Yeah.
They didn't put it together.
Right.
Anyway.
And then I know what that is. You had the idea for a premise and you did it and tanked, and then a more seasoned comic in the back of the room was
fucking
like, Here's actually how you turn it into something, and that's what happened. Yeah.
And another comic told me, Doug, you're too, you've only been doing this for 2 years. You can't do a joke about God. I'm like, what?
Joke about whatever you want. Yeah. Doesn't matter how long. You can get away with it. You can sell it.
Yep. This was a comedy instructor that turned out to be a sociopath and a moron.
Stop. It
Yeah,
teaches
no,
comedy.
really, they're out there.
Dude, one of the things I did do this over this year is I actually taught some comedy writing to a group I did, and it wasn't my idea. It was weird. I was just asked in the same day by two different people to do it. So I let one of them set me up and we started doing it. And so I've been doing a little, but that was always the thing, like teaching comedy and stand up is oftentimes the guy teaching it is doing that because there's no other way he can make money in the industry.
You know something I taught, I did 6 classes at my local library. I thought it would be fun.
Uh-huh.
I was in 5 years, and basically the entire class was, please don't do comedy. Don't do comedy. Don't,
Yeah.
you know, it's if you either have to do comedy, if you have to do it, do it. But, you know,
I mean,
please
yeah,
don't.
5 years in is way too early to be teaching. I remember watching, I mean, I've taken classes and I've had some really good teachers. When I started, before I even moved to New York City, my teacher at Stand Up New York was Lisa Lampanelli, who wasn't famous yet, but was really good. So I had her, and then I did a seminar with Eddie Brill. So if you can find teachers that actually know what they're doing, you're in good hands. But I remember one day, you know, the Learning Annex and how they always have, they have those little magazines of their classes. They still have them on the street. It used to be right next to the Onion, right? You get the Onion and then but they still have those bins. And if you don't know what it is, I mean, you can take a class in everything from TV VCR repair to poetry writing to whatever. And there's always a comedy thing. And I'm flipping through, and when I saw who was teaching the class, I was so disgusted that I will never take a class of anything from that organization, because I'm like, if you hired that literal still open micer hack and are passing him off as someone who has any say in how to write, well, I'm like, you guys have
He passed himself off. And you know something, Tom and I could go through a list of 10 comics in 5 seconds of people who have all the bravado of a comic.
Mm-hmm.
And they are so cool about how great they are and how often they kill. But we've not heard an audience laugh, maybe a pity laugh.
You mentioned Eddie Brill. He's been on our show already. He's a great guy.
Yeah, he's a friend of mine. He's a good guy. Yeah. The thing is, you can tell so much about a comic without ever watching them on stage. Like I said, I don't watch other comedians, and we can get into that later, but I don't watch the show much. I don't want to open myself up to parallel thinking, really.
Right.
Just off stage, there are ways you can tell a comic has their chops or don't. And one of the big ones is Tom's hiding from the camera. But one of the big ones is that bravado, that bullshit sense of they walk in the room like they're Dave Chappelle, right? Like they've earned any sense of bravado. And it's all covering, it's all masking for insecurity.
They should be scared shitless if they know what's good for them.
Yeah, guys who always, because I especially before I got into audience warm up, how I built that skill was just hosting in New York City clubs. I used to be the house MC at New York Comedy for a long time, and different stand up New York. I did a lot, and the guys who come up and know what they're doing, right? Real comics. You're hosting. You ask me, what do you want me to say? Clubs and colleges. I give zero shits what you say, right? You know, the guys who give you a cue card that's already written out with everything, and it's never a credit. It's this is a good one. Has worked with. Oh, he's worked with Kevin Hart. He's worked with Dave Attell. He's worked with. Have you worked with, or did you do a bringer show at Caroline's and Kevin Hart popped by? You know, it's that kind of shit. So you can always tell. And
I've never said I've worked with Jim Gaffigan. I should start doing that.
Yeah, has worked with Gaffigan. Has you know,
Gaffigan stole my jokes.
I remember one night being at Stand Up New York and hanging out at the bar with Ben Bailey, the from Cash Cab.
Yeah, of course.
And we were both, I think we were like the pros on a bringer show. So they would hire maybe 2 headliners to do 15-minute spots and actually pay us, just so the people who brought all the audience, are guaranteed a couple
Yeah.
comics who know which end of the mic to talk. So I'm hanging at the bar, and Ben and I are talking, and some young comic who I don't remember, whatever, comes up, and instead of just trying to just get into the conversation and talk to us like comics, makes the cardinal sin of comes in and tries to work his act into our conversation.
Uh-huh.
And is trying to change the conversation to his act. And at one point, I was a little drunk, and I just turned to Ben, and I right in front of this guy, I go, Ben, do you remember how long were you in comedy when you finally got confidence to realize to do your act on stage and then to shut the fuck up? And then and this dope sitting next to us didn't get it that I was shitting on. There's a lot you can tell about a comic and how seasoned and how far they are along by
we're also, you probably know comics too who are comedians when they're doing stand-up, but get them off stage for 5 seconds and they're like, they don't have a sense of humor anymore. And
I could fall into that category very easily. Yeah. We
don't like you. This has been Funny Talk with Mongelli and Max. And we don't remember who. Sure. What's your name again?
If you come down to it,
I'm definitely not a person. I'm definitely a person who can turn it on and can turn it off. I can do. My wife marvels at this to this day. That we'll say we're at Broadway Comedy Club, and I'm going to be going on. So we're in that little back storage area. That doubles as a green
What's
room.
in the boxes?
Yeah, sitting amongst the boxes and the half-eaten cheesecakes. And I'll be talking to somebody else, and we could be talking about whatever. Doesn't matter, sports, politics, whatever we're talking about. Talk. I hear my intro. I go on stage, do my act, do whatever I do. 20 minutes later, come back off, back in that room. We pick the conversation right back up. It's a throwing a switch. So I'm definitely not a person off stage who feels the need to make everybody laugh, to be the center of attention, to do any of that. I'm if you see me,
I'm that way off stage, but never on.
Yeah, no, I'm totally not. I'm very much. I just chill. I think probably somebody who didn't know me would think I'm very shy or aloof or something like that. Or I'm not that way. And so I think.
He only acts that way and appears that way, but he's not that way. So audience.
Yeah. No, in real life, I'm not. And people ask my wife, that's one of the more naive questions she gets. It's like, so do you just laugh all the time? You must laugh all the time. And she's like, no, that's his job. Like when he comes home, yeah, I'm funny sometimes, but I never feel the pressure to turn it on or anything. So,
I'll tell you why I feel the pressure is if somebody, like, if I'm out in public in a restaurant or whatever, and they don't know I'm a comic,
yeah,
I'm you wouldn't know I was a comic. Let's put it that way. But if I'm someplace where they know I'm a comic, I feel compelled to make them laugh. I don't know.
Tom, you should make your comedy more like mine. You wouldn't feel that compulsion. The pressure would be off of you, buddy.
Yeah, I just feel like life would be too exhausting if I was always on, or if I felt that pressure somewhere else to be. I don't know. It's like the Bob Dylan lyric, right? It's my work. They say I do it for pay, and when it's all over, I'll just as soon go on my way. That's how it is,
Well, so I got into comedy late in life, so I did it because I needed it.
Okay.
And I'm ostensibly retired, so I don't have to worry about money, thank God.
Yeah, I started young. I mean, I think the first time I stepped on stage, I was 19 or 20. I dropped out of college and I started stand-up, when I was like 20. And I looked at it like those first 8 years, I looked at it like college, like I didn't worry about the debts I was accruing on my credit card. Those were my student loans. And I didn't worry that I wasn't making a lot of money, that kind of shit. But that was my college. That was my education. So I did that for a good long time, never let the industry see me, just grew the talent, incubated, and then took off. And now, as a result, I'm in it 20 years, and I too I live within my means, so I don't have to work. I'm not in the position anymore where I'm worrying about money on a day-to-day, am I going to make rent this month basis. I'm not rich or comfortable even, but I somehow can consistently make a living at it. And
it's very rare in the,
it
it's
really
very rare.
is. It really is.
People don't understand the comedy is it's probably easier to become a professional ball player than to make a good living in comedy. Maybe something like that. It's probably close to. I don't know how many teams there. I don't follow sports, so
yeah.
Well,
a football team has a 53-man roster. So there's probably about 700 players in the league, and all the different sports. I think I agree with what you say. I think one of the important things is being able, and this is something I've had to do. First of all, understanding what it means to make it in this industry. I, have made it by most anybody's standards. I've made it. I don't have to work a day job. I don't have to set my alarm clock. I do comedy. I get paid for it, and I'm happy. So I've made it. But to a person who doesn't know, it's like, well, I've never heard of you. I don't know who you are. You're not selling out a theater. You're not selling out the Garden.
And that's the majority of comics in the country.
That's what they think. And that's what they think, right? They think that you're not
Chris Rock.
You're not famous. Oh, you're not, well, when are you going to be famous? Why aren't you famous? It's like, well, that's nice. And sure, it'd be great to be the Bill Burr level to go sell out all these theaters and shit like that. But the reality of the business is at any one time, there's only maybe 5 or 6 guys who are currently going city to city selling out theater. Right. There's only one Jerry Seinfeld, right? There's only one, there's only one Jerry Seinfeld, one Dave Chappelle, and then there's everybody else that's in the level of Bill Burr and Larry the Cable Guy and all that can go sell out the Garden and shit like that. And then after that, the drop down is the next level down are the guys who are consistently selling and doing the improvs and the comedy clubs on the road and make their living at that. And so you've gone from 2 guys at the top to 5 to maybe 200 down. And then you get down to the next level where I am, which is can do other comedy clubs and can do other things, but people don't know who the fuck you are. So, but I've made it. I don't need a day job, but I'm nowhere near that level of anybody else. And the only reason I made it is
and then there's the level that Tom is at, and then far below that.
Yeah, dude, no, 100%. There's
I'm here.
The thing is, when you think about the number of people who call themselves comedians in the world, we're not talking about just New York City. And like we talked about that Facebook post where I'm like, I don't even know this industry anymore because it's so many new people and all that constantly. Let's say I go to, I used to do an improv in Pittsburgh, right? That's 8 hours away from New York City. I would go into that club and there would be pictures of all the comics on the wall who play there. I barely know a soul on that wall. They have 200 other comics that I've never even heard of. And the next comedy club up, 200 different comics on their wall that I've never heard of. And it's like, once you realize what a big country this is and that every city has their own scene and people trying to move up to New York and just get into the clubs and all that kind of stuff. Once you start to appreciate the number of people that are in the industry and the fact that you're able to do it, that you're able to even get a booking from Jack Hoffman, right? Even just to go do a Firehouse or something for a couple $100, dude, that puts you up on a level over thousands and thousands and thousands of comics who can't even get to that point. So making it is not being famous. That's the supersized thing. Making it is being able to make a living and do what you love. And so I'm fortunate that I've gotten to that point. And
but you've given me a great idea.
What's that?
I'm going to go on tour with my trunk filled with my photos. And
Okay.
I'm going to go to every comedy club I can and put my photo up. Nobody, because you're not going to reckon, but after seeing me like 1,000 times, you'll have a familiarity.
You go into that club and you be
And
like,
then you'll
nope,
go, I want that guy on my show because I'm going to look good compared to him.
yeah. Or you're like, is he dead? Who's this? Why have I never heard of this comic?
Give me a few years.
His picture's in every club, but he's not on. He must have died in the 80s. I wonder if he had a cocaine problem. It'd be like that.
Yeah, Doug and I were both bucket list comics. I was 50 when I started. I would have loved to have started like when you did. In fact, when I was in college, I was a freshman, and I just started to go to the comedy clubs. I was going to the Improv a lot, and I attempted it wasn't an open mic. It was kind of like a showcase. The guy I knew's cousin owned a restaurant or a bar.
Mm-hmm.
I was the only comic that went up. I had never done it before. At that point, I had never seen a live comedy show, and I bombed so bad that it took me another 30, 40 years for me to even attempt doing comedy again.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's funny.
I have another great idea. I think it's going to help my career. I got it from you guys, so thank you. I'm going to start telling people I started comedy when I was 14, and I'm going to bill myself as the world's worst comedian.
I thought you were going to say the world's oldest teenager.
Maybe.
I started when I'm 14. I'm only 15, but I grew up next to power lines.
I got a disease. Oh, I've got a disease that aged me.
I got that Benjamin
years in a year.
Yeah.
And I'll start a GoFundMe. And
but it's brave. I tell you what, you guys who start comedy later on in life, I think that's super brave. I think it's, because the way I went into it was so calculated. I started at 20 when I didn't have a girlfriend, I didn't have a wife, I didn't have kids, I didn't have a mortgage, I didn't have shit. And so I had very little responsibility. So I could fail, and I could have failed and moved back home at 22, gone back to college and something like that. So I did it without a safety net, without something to fall back on. But I was young. But to start and to grind it out when you're 50, to be going out and
for me, it was catharsis. The day I got my divorce papers in the mail, I booked myself on a new talent night in 2 weeks, and I got it all out of. I didn't get it all out of me. I'm still getting it out of me, but it's pretty much out of me.
But just the idea, like I'm 42 now, and the idea of like going out and doing that part of the job I'm going to start doing again, which is just hanging out. Just hanging out, night in and night out, going to a club, being there, even if you don't have a spot, just so they see your face and that kind of. That's a young man's game, man. It was no problem when I was 23.
Oh, I heard the story.
When I'm 22, 23, I'm like, I would be going out to bars trying to meet girls anyway. So I'll just make a comedy club bars, and it's part of the job. But now it's like, boy, it's super comfy here in my apartment and all the things I've got and my nice big TV and. I gotta do this shit
at the age you're at now, you mentioned you're not working a full-time job like Doug. Well, Doug retired, but I'm still working a full-time job. So I'm doing that 6 days a week. I'm trying to get out there 2-3 times a week. Mm-hmm. We do the podcast. So it's like,
it's a lot.
It's not easy. It's a lot.
Listen, if this is a burden for you, Tom, we can end it very easily. We can end it like in 5 seconds.
Funny talk with Max.
Yeah, I was fortunate not to have to go too long into my career with the day job and stuff. I think I was about 22, when the last time that I had like an actual day job. But I just remember, man, I was temping and I was doing that kind of shit. But just you go out, and I would be out at the clubs till 1, and I wouldn't get home till like 1 in the morning, and then I'd have to be up at 6 to get to some silly ass office.
So can I ask how your family might have reacted to your deciding to drop out of college and become a comedian?
Very supportive. Very
nice.
Very. Oh, well, I should. All right. So when I told my parents,
you're saying you want to go out and have fun every night, and I get to save $40,000 a year. Let me think about this. Hang on. Okay, Kevin.
Well, first of all, you should know about me. I was never a good student. I barely got into community college. I mean, I'm smart, but if something didn't appeal to me or bored me, I didn't pay attention to it. I was having fun. So I wasn't a good high school student. I never saw myself as being a college person that, so it's not like it was go to Georgetown on a full scholarship or go do open mics in New York City. I didn't really have to. I was doing community college for like 2 years, a year and a half or so. And then we had a tough time, and my younger brother died, and that sucked. And that was the day, though, where I kind of had this epiphany, which was I was going to become a stand-up. I wanted to do it since I was a kid. Then I gave up on that for a while, that idea, because of Banya on Seinfeld, because of the idea
that would be you.
yeah, the idea of bombing in front of strangers never scared me.
You know, there's still a comic that I swear hates me to this day because I saw him. It was one of my first acts, and I saw him bomb horribly.
Mm-hmm.
And I might have said some comment like acknowledging
Things Banya,
kind of, but
yeah.
anyway,
Well,
8
well,
years
the idea-
later.
Just the idea, not that I would bomb in front of an audience, but the idea, the thought that there are comics out there that other comics don't respect. The comics I respect don't respect. To fail in front of strangers would have been fine. To fail in the eyes of comics I respect, that was what scared me away. And then my brother dies, and then I had that epiphany that fuck it, life's way too short. It can end anytime. So do what you want to do. So it was that day that I told my parents, I'm like, the semester had just started.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear it.
Thanks. It's 20 plus years ago now. But
I lost my brother. I was 10. He was 8.
Well,
So
yeah.
You were into it a little further with your brother.
I was 19, he was 18. Yeah. And it sucks, and I carry it with me, but whatever. But I told them that day, I just said to my parents, I said, I'm not going back to college, community college, not this semester anyway. It just started. I think he died like 2 days past that day where you could still leave the school and they'd give you your money back. So they refunded me under the circumstances. And I was just like, I said to my folks, I'm like, well, I'm not going back this semester because I'm not going to be able to pay attention, give it my all or anything. It's going to be a waste of time. And I said, I'm going to, I want to get into stand-up. And my parents have been nothing but supportive. That day, they were like, we understand. That's fine that you don't want to go back to school if you wanted, but if you want to get into performing arts, what we want you to do is to apprentice this coming summer at the Williamstown Theater Festival. I'm from Western Mass. Williams College is in Williamstown, which is in my county, and the Williamstown Theater Festival is just huge. It's where all the Broadway people go for their summers and things like that. So I apprenticed there, and really the only reason that I wanted to do it was one of the people, and this is only 1999, one of the people who went there every summer was Lewis Black, and he taught a stand-up class. So I was able to get in, and I apprenticed there for the summer, and I did plays, and I took Lewis's class and made some connections and some friends. And then the next year I worked with a different theater company in the Berkshires, made more connections. And then after that, I moved to New York. So my parents were very supportive of me getting into this, doing it. And they've been nothing but proud and supportive the whole time. And it's paid off for them. I wasn't a good athlete. So my parents never, when I was a kid, had the experience of seeing me hit a home run. I never scored a touchdown. All those important things in a small town. I wasn't that kid. But by the time I was about 26 or 27, now I'm kind of the hot shit in town, right? All of a sudden people were paying tickets to see me. The papers were doing stories on me. Now so.
I think it's great your parents were supportive. I had to wait for both my parents to die.
Yeah, mine have been great. Nothing. My father is so funny. I think he could have done this job if he had wanted to when he was young. And he definitely got a sense of pride, not only in me, but in his own parenting. He would say again and again, if I had ever said to my parents when I was 20, I'm just going to move to New York City, they would have put me in a hospital, had my head checked, but they've been nothing but supportive. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I got my sense of humor from my mom. I certainly did not get it from my father.
No, yeah, my
Might
dad.
have gotten it because of my father, though.
No, my dad's hilarious. My dad could have done it. And it's funny, but the thing is funny is because now he tries to give me material, give me jokes, and give me, and I don't
Have
care
you
who.
used any of them?
One,
What is
one,
it?
one thing he said once, I took because we had my sister's best friend, was very religious and got married a virgin, and her husband was a virgin. They waited and barely held hands. I mean, barely kissed or anything before, almost no physical contact. So before they got married, my father, who was teasing her and whatever, asked this girl, his thing was, well, what if you're waiting and all this, but what if he's freaky, right? What if he can't, you're married, you're committing, and what if he is, what if he needs to be dressed as Batman, is what my father said. So that's the only thing that ended up in my act, because now I talk about that, and I say to somebody, who's waiting for marriage, I'm like, now you're committed to them, whatever. What happens if you wait until you're married to have sex, and then you find out that your partner can't come unless he's dressed as Batman? And that gets a laugh, and then I tag it with, well, now for the rest of the time of your life, anytime you get an itch between your legs, you have to shine a flashlight on the ceiling. And so that's one thing that actually became a bit that my father did. But generally, I when it comes to anyone else giving me material or feeding me ideas, it's I give them two things. First of all, it's the thing Charles Schultz said, the creator of Peanuts, in a 60 Minutes interview, when they asked him that question. What, people must come up to you all the time with ideas of things that Lucy or Charlie Brown. And he says they do. And he goes, I politely stop them in their tracks and I say, please do not say it. Everything has to come from my head. If you say it, I can be able to do it. I'll think of something similar later and remember that you told me. So I tell people that. And then the other thing I do is I was hanging out again at Stand Up New York Bar with a cast member at the time of SNL. Somebody came up and tried to pitch him a sketch, and he stopped them in their tracks. And he goes, I can't legally listen to this. If you tell me, it's like you're pitching an idea to the show. And if you, and he goes, and if you tell me this idea, this premise, and the show does something even in 6 months that's close to that, you theoretically could sue the program and say, well, I pitched this to one of your cast members and now you're doing it. So I stop people right away. And it's the reason I don't watch others stand up. I don't want to have parallel thinking. I don't want to have that thing that happened with, because I do so much crowd work and so much off the top of your head. I don't want to have that thing to happen with like Robin Williams, where everybody called him a thief as a stand-up. I don't think he was a thief as much as that he was planning to go steal something. I think it was more, if you hear somebody do something, have a premise, have a material. You may think it's funny, you may think it's not, but it's in there. And a couple months down the road, you forget where that premise came from or that punchline came from, and you think it's organic to you. Oh, actually, it's not. It's something that Doug Max said when he was opening for me, or Tom said when he was doing this with me. So all of a sudden now am I a thief? Now did I just rip you off? Now, oh shit, I realize it. Now I can never do it again. So I'm much more in all those situations. Just keep it to yourself. Don't tell me. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear your act. I don't want any info. It's all got to come from here so that I can be comfortable in that moment if I want to ride off the cuff, that I'm not ripping somebody.
It's a good way to handle it.
Yeah.
I normally will just thank people because, I don't have to worry about, SNL getting sued. So,
no, that's, I don't.
Whenever they do it, I will, of course, never. First of all, it's almost always jokes. Like, tell this joke.
Yeah.
And there are only a couple jokes I tell, and I will when I'm desperate. I've got them if I need them.
Or it's super racist or sexist or something. A number of times, I don't know what it is about. I don't think it's just me. I think this happens to most comics, but it makes you wonder, what the fuck did I just do on stage? What happened in my act that somebody come up to me afterwards at the bar, lean in with a joke, here, you can use this. and then they open it dropping an N-bomb or something like that. I was like, where?
It's alcohol,
Yeah, it's like where?
possibly mixed with sociopathy.
I think so. What some people think that I would do on stage is crazy.
Well, just look at the country, what some people think. We know what some people think. We know what,
Oh, of course.
we know what tens and tens of millions of people think.
Now,
So
I
I studied psychology in college, and I've said this
Yeah.
a million times, and it explains 99% of human behavior. IQ is normally distributed. So there's an average of 100, and the standard deviation is 15. So the first standard deviation contains 34% of the population. So 84% of the population have an IQ of 115 or lower.
Mhm.
It also means that you've got 15% of the population with the IQ of 85% or lower, who look up to our former president and think that guy's smart.
Listen, there's no joke. If you go look back at approval ratings and that kind of thing, if you look at anything Trump or anything George Bush, those guys never hit an approval rating. They always had a solid 30 something just to begin with. He could literally, he was right. He could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue. That 30% is not going to abandon him, those morons. And of course,
And
now
that's why the entire Senate is frightened of him, because they want that 30%.
Yeah. And they've just been given a megaphone now, thanks to the internet and thanks to 24-hour news, that their opinions seem to matter. And it's terrible. And that's the new quandary we have going in here also, is like, I feel like I don't want to go do shows to promote myself on compound media. I've turned down Fox News. I would never appear on them. I don't want to go out of my way to attract those people as my audience, because on some level, whatever it is that I have, whether it's a talent that's God-given or it's something that I built myself, either way, I don't want to share it with you. If you think it's okay for kids to be locked in a cage, fuck you. I don't want to make you laugh. I don't want my gift to make your life better. Maybe that makes me a bad, selfish person.
Yes,
but
it
that's
does.
Right.
It's
So
okay. All our guests are bad, selfish people.
Yeah, so I would go out my way to find the audience that is more like-minded and all of that.
But there's another, can I just say, the other way to look at it is by being a little neutral and being approachable and connect with these people, you have a greater chance to influence them through comedy. I remember Jim Jeffers doing a great joke about gun control. And he said, if you're a legal gun owner and your reason is for safety, if you're holding a gun legally and a burglar comes in your house at 2:00 in the morning, you're like, you stay right there. I'm going to go and unlock my gun. And just hang on. I'm going to unlock the bullets. Just hang on. Just you stay right there, sir. I'm going to,
Yeah. Well, he's right.
And you do gun control humor in any audience, you're going to have, well, I don't know where he was, Ohio, anywhere, but in maybe New Jersey or California or New York, you're going to have, the audience is all going to be against you. But if you can make them laugh, you can make them think.
I agree to that. Look at my personal politics and view on the world as it developed. Definitely was influenced by George Carlin. Definitely was influenced by a lot of lefty comedians and anti-authoritarian comedians and things like that. So I appreciate that when it comes to political theory, feelings, even South Park has influenced. Honestly, the South Park's episode on stem cells all those years ago took a complicated issue for me and made it black and white, and that was it. So there is a place and a way to do that, and it can have its function. I personally don't think it's my job to change your opinion as a comic. I don't think it's my job. That's not the kind of comedy I do. That's not. I spent so much time. I'm a regular, or have been a regular guest on like Sirius XM Progress shows, like John Fugelsang shows and stuff like that. And I'm in the world of progressive comedians and stuff. And I don't know. I personally don't like the comedy that sets out with a complete agenda on the left or the right, and that's all you talk about. I go into it, first of all, even back before we were so splintered. If you start talking politics, you're going to cut your audience in half right off the bat, make it harder on yourself. And I see so many guys, so many people now, in especially in progressive circles, who call themselves comedians, and they're not. They're just doing the sound bites. They're doing the left wing talking points and thinking they're being funny. And so
philosophers.
yeah, they're not, and it's not. And so for me, I don't want to change. I'm not setting out to change the world for better or for worse, politically or whatever. I'm not doing material that is overtly political. There's always a couple of jokes in my act. I mean, I remember even doing audience warm up. I can do this one for you guys because I can't do it really anymore. But when I was doing audience warm up, I would always, talk about getting them excited, and you would, you have to get their energy levels up, right? So one way is to get people clapping and get them clapping about things they agree with. So how many people are here from out of town? How many New Yorkers? Those kind of things, just to get them started. So you say how many people are from out of town or whatever, and some people would clap and some would raise their hand. And so what I would do, that would always happen. So the next thing I would say is, you guys, I'm asking these questions to get you clapping, to get you making energy and noise. So if I ask a question and it pertains to you, stomp your feet, clap your hands, hoot and holler, give me some energy. Don't just raise your right hand in the air for me to see. I go, that's fine. There's a time and a place. If you want to go be in a crowd of a couple hundred other people and just idly throw your right hand in the air, by all means, right? Because then it looks like I'm doing the Nazi salute. Go to a Trump. Or back when George Bush was president, I used to say I wished him. The premise of what I said is basically I wish that he would get a break. Right? I was just like, I hope this fucker gets a tumor in his brain, which sounds rough. Don't worry. I don't want him to die from it. I want him to get one of those tumors that you can cure using stem cells, which is pretty smart when you think about it. Basically, what I was saying is I want the president to die, but no, I don't. I want the one thing that can save him to be the thing that he banned. So if you understand the irony, it's funny. So those little things I'll throw in there, so you'll know in my act that I hate these guys, that that kind of shit. But I'm not going to do a whole bit about.
I've tried it a couple times, and it alienates the audience, and the Trumpsters will be offended, and the others will be sheepish because they don't want to, get attacked. So listen, they pay to come and laugh. That's the one thing that they have in common.
And that's my job. And especially when you're doing shows that are firehouse gigs like we were talking about, you're going to get those people. Absolutely. And your job is to make them laugh. And that's what I'm paid for. And I'm a professional. So I put it to the side. I did all these shows on Royal Caribbean cruises. Those fucking people who go there to sit and to overeat, shitload of Trump people, right? Those jokes. So anything, if I ever said anything close, I would get reports.
Did you hear Al Franken's joke about, I think it was Caribbean cruise, whatever cruise line had the problem with the toilets?
Oh, yeah. Something about
So Amy Klobuchar was doing a joke at some Senate dinner, and she wrote a joke, and she told it to Al Franken, and he thought he'd punch it up a little bit, but he didn't. Anyway, at an affair, she meets Ted Cruz, and she says, Ted, I'm going to do this joke. I wanted to run it by you and see what you think. And the joke was, when most people think of a bad cruise, they think of Caribbean, but in the Senate, we think of Ted.
Yeah.
So Ted tried to punch it up. Al Franken said, Ted, I did a rewrite for that, if you'd like to hear. He goes, okay. He goes, most people, when they think of a shitty cruise, they think of Caribbean, but in the Senate, we think of Ted. So Ted shut Ted up. He walked away.
Yeah, it's a good one. I love Al Franken.
I do too. And I used to love Kirsten Gillibrand, but
I'm in the same boat. She's the only Democratic senator I won't vote for. I wouldn't vote for.
Well, and it was because of Al Franken, because of her
100%.
starting the guilt trip on him.
100%.
The woman was wearing body armor. He's a comedian. He was taking a funny photo.
Mm-hmm.
And, I feel bad for Al that he's such a moral man with, that can feel shame. I wish more senators could feel that.
And there's nothing to feel shame about. He did nothing wrong. That'll just get me pissed off if I start thinking about that all over again.
Kevin, before we run out of time completely, I just want to make sure we have time to plug some of your projects that you're working on and shows.
Okay,
What do
sure.
you have going on?
Well, I guess people can just follow me on Twitter at Kevin Bartini or go to my website, kevinbartini.com. I guess we're taping this a week before it airs, so hopefully by then I'll have some dates actually on the calendar again and things. But so yeah, there's not a lot of calendar, not a lot of stuff right now to promote. I'm going to I'll be doing, starting next week, I'm going to start just doing some spots and popping around the city. I'll go do some feature spots here and there, and just I'll tweet about it and pop them up. A lot of them are going to be last minute, and I know we're working together June 24th on Long Island. You have the info on that. I know I'm doing another one-nighter in Jersey, and
I think that's West Orange we're going to be.
am I doing West Orange with you, or am I doing Long Island? I'm doing Jersey.
Roll 350. It's going to be me, you, and Sandy Ellers.
Okay, yeah. And then I'm doing another one, pretty much a very similar gig, Long Island. A lot of those things. So I'll be popping up. But beyond that, the other projects, everything's still too much in the incubator stage to start promoting it just yet. So just follow me on Twitter and check out my webpage, and hopefully you'll find something where I'll be coming to a town near you. Who knows, in the next year or so? I don't know. This whole industry is going to open slowly and in its own way. So I've kind of mentally, I'm still like, like for that last year, I was like, I'm not a comic anymore. This year, I'm just in this egg yolk stage, whatever the fuck that word was you used. But now
Interregnum.
Interregnum, right? Like the yolk, it's inside the egg. I'm more like this whole year coming up. It's almost like going back to my college comedy days of just getting out, working new material. So people are interested in seeing that. Follow me and see as we plug away at the new hour where we can.
And I'll just say, people that don't know, see a comic working out material, and you'll appreciate how much work goes into, how much work goes into.
Especially if you're a young comic. That was one of the great things. Like when I compare those early years to college, the first break I got in the industry was I was taking classes before I even moved to New York City at Stand Up New York with Lisa Lampanelli. I mean, I would drive from Massachusetts or take the train down to New York City, take her class, and then take the train back. It was like a 10-hour round trip just to do class.
Wow.
And I moved down to New York City Thanksgiving weekend of 2000. So that's late November. And then Super Bowl Sunday of 01, I got a call from Stand Up New York that Lisa had recommended me to work the door. So I got my first break working the door. For any young comic that can get that gig, it's awesome. Doesn't pay shit. I got paid, I think, $15 a night and a cheeseburger and some stage time. But when you talk about watching comics develop their material, that was a masterclass. This is 2000, 2001, 02. I mean, night in and night out, I watched Bill Burr go on stage and craft his act. I watched Chris Rock go on stage. I watched Dave Attell. I watched Greg Giraldo and Patrice and a lot of the greats who are dead now. I watched, and you would see their process, and they all have different processes, but they all seem the same, which is you start out with an idea, and it's like a big ass chunk of clay, right? You take it on stage, and night after night, you shake the clay, and you see how they whittle it down until you get the act. And that's how I learned to do it. It's just watching guys I respect night in and night out, and to be able to see the subtle changes night in and night out. So it's one to just see a comic trying new stuff, and then a year later seeing them do it on TV or Netflix and be like, oh, I remember that. And yeah, it's kind of different. But actually seeing them do the same bit 30 times.
Yeah.
That's really the only way to really learn is to just watch it again and again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amen.
So now, as we're running out of time, so we've only got a half an hour for you to run through your upcoming gigs, Tom.
Oh, well, things started clicking for me like left and right. So I have next Thursday, I'm going to be at the Brownstone in Patterson doing a show for the Patterson Rotary Club. That's Thursday the 10th. Wednesday the 16th. I got a couple of retirement homes and convalescent places. I'm going to be at Complete Care Havens in Manchester, New Jersey on Wednesday the 16th.
So if you are not currently old or convalescing, please get in that place quickly and you'll be able to enjoy a show.
And
Tom,
then
wait, sorry, those nursing homes, are those your own gigs? Do you book those, or who does that?
they contacted me. The one that I just mentioned, she had seen me in a show a couple of months ago, loved me, and tracked me down on Facebook. And
No,
yeah.
the only reason I ask is I thought when we were saying have we worked together, I was thinking that might have been it. Not that I've done on nursing homes, but I remember doing a benefit for Jody Weiner, who's another comedy booker and comedian, very sweet lady, in New Jersey in Bud Lake, the Pax Amicus Theater.
Okay.
And I remember there was about a half dozen comics and one of the other comics on the show afterwards, we were having dinner at a diner and started talking about how he books nursing home gigs and asked if I wanted to do some and that kind of thing. So when you just started saying that, all of a sudden I was saying, wait, is Tom the guy who was talking to me about? Because that's the only time I've ever otherwise heard about doing, senior center stuff.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to be together.
Back to your.
We're going to be together on the 24th at Grill 350 in West Orange. And then Saturday, June 26th, is the Acme Screening Room in Lambertville, New Jersey. That's a benefit. And looking forward to that. And then July, I got a few other ones. Saturday the 10th, it's a private party in Point Pleasant. Saturday the 17th of July is the Polish American Club in White House Station. Friday the 30th, I just picked up another adult community in Toms River. So, things are starting to happen, and I'm happy because I was so beside myself this whole past year. It's been driving me nuts.
That wasn't you beside yourself. That's you. You should stop eating so much. Anyway, you're going to ask me what I've got coming up?
Zip code.
You're going to ask me what I got coming up, Tom?
What do you have coming up, Doug?
So, Tom, what day is today? June 1. So, June 5th,
You're going
Piscataway, I got nothing. June 7th in Rahway, beautiful Rahway, at the Cavatelli Diner. I am not going to be there.
Okay.
The 13th, I will. I'm trying to make myself feel
the
better.
idea.
I'm trying. Oh, I know. No. Oh, no. Oh, and then I've got a number of private parties coming up that unfortunately none of the New Jersey comics will be able to attend and see me perform. Those are coming up on May 13th, 14th, 17th, 19th, 21st, 23rd, 27th, 29th. Going into September already, private parties. Forget if you got something public, don't even ask. I'm so busy making so much. I'm cleaning up. Oh, wait a minute, the phone. Gotham? No, I got a private party that night. Fuck. Everybody, every fucking comic comes on our show, Kevin. Everyone comes on our show. The next week, we're recording our show. Oh, I got a gig to perform with Kevin Bartini. Oh, I got a gig. Every one of our guests comes on and books Tom. It's like, what am I? I'm going to stop putting the show up online is what I'm going to stop doing.
Don't feel pressure.
This has been, for some reason, Funny Talk.
Funny Talk with Mongelli and Max.
With Mongelli and Max and Kevin, it's really been nice. Kevin Bartini, look for him online, Twitter, kevinbartini.com. He's got a Facebook page.
Instagram, all that fun stuff.
He's an exceptional comic, hungry for comedy. Please book him after you book me.
He's hungry for comedy. I'm just hungry.
Yeah.
So anyway,
you guys have me on, man. Thank you.
Jack at JRwinProductions.com. If you want to put a comedy show together, he's the guy to contact. I cut you off. What'd you say, Kevin?
No, I was just thanking you for having me on. This was a lot of fun. I'm
Yeah,
glad we could do it.
And you have an open invitation whenever you want to come. Just let us know.
No, you keep on saying that. He doesn't have an open invitation. We have a calendar. We book people.
Right. Well, listen, I don't want to, don't give me an open invitation yet. Let's just see how this plays out. Make sure I come through with those 7s of people. I want to make sure we're putting some money in old Jack.
We normally require it a 7, but we'll let you come back on if you bring us, a cat. That's a cat.
Don't worry.
But we need a photographic evidence of the cat watching us. Kevin, it's really been fun talking to you. I wish you the best of luck getting back out there and getting your sea legs again, as it were. I know they'll come.
Yeah. My sea legs and my sea words. They're all going to come out on stage.
Careful with the latter.
So I look forward to seeing you both in West Orange then on the 24th. Yes.
Well, I might come just to watch.
Okay.
Because nobody's going to want me to do comedy. If you saw my comedy, you'd understand. You might like it, but the audience is there,
Yeah, I go back so far. I used to play West Orange when there was a Rascals there.
I remember. I'm from Summit, so I'm from that neighborhood. I used to drive by it all the time.
Club.
Yeah. All right.
Anyway, this has been Funny Talk with Mongelli and Max and Kevin Bartini. Look for him online. Exceptional comic. Kevin, thank you again.
It's my pleasure, guys. Thanks so much. Take care of yourselves.
Take care.
All right.